Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're bringing you a brand new explainer, and let me tell you, we are heading way off the beaten path for this one. We're going to be breaking down a truly terrifying narrative from our source material. It's centered around this seemingly innocent, cozy little wooden house tucked away just outside an isolated town in New Zealand. I want you to picture it, a property totally surrounded by these dense, towering pine forests, rolling hills, and this incredibly deep, dark lake right in the backyard. Sounds like a picturesque getaway, right? Well, as we're about to see, this beautiful setting is actually the absolute perfect stage for pure, unadulterated horror. Okay, let's dive into this. It's a wildly fascinating premise, isn't it? I mean, we all interact with books literally every single day. We use them to learn, to escape, to relax. But the core question our source material throws at us today is this. Could something as totally mundane as a bound collection of paper actually be a vessel for some dark, ancient entity? Before we introduce our main character and find out exactly how horribly wrong things can go, let's set up the chilling background. All right, Section 1, an abandoned house.
So the whole narrative kicks off with an older guy named Richard. One day, a postman shows up and finds his remote farmhouse completely deserted. We're talking ghost town. Massive police searches happen, they scour the area, but they find absolutely nothing. Eventually, Richard is officially declared dead, and he leaves this massive, sprawling property to his 25-year-old granddaughter, Mia. Now, Mia lives all the way over in Los Angeles, but, she gets the news and immediately flies out to New Zealand. Her plan is so completely standard and mundane. She just wants to clean the place up, sort out the paperwork, sell the house, and get right back to her normal life. And for a while, she's making great progress. She spends a whole day cleaning, and everything is going perfectly to plan until she gets to the very last room on her checklist, the garage. And man, this is where her simple little weekend chore goes completely off the rails.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is Section 2, the demonic book. So here we are in the garage. This is ground zero for the nightmare. Mia is in there just sorting through a bunch of junk, old rusted tools, tangled fishing gear, heavy wooden crates. It's super dusty, tedious work, but then, squeezed way back in this tiny gap between an iron shelf and the wall, she spots something really out of place. It's this thick, heavy bundle, and it's wrapped entirely in a dark black cloth. She pulls it out, coughs off the dust, and slowly unwraps the fabric. And what she finds inside definitely isn't a hammer or some quaint family heirloom. It's this incredibly bizarre, ancient-looking book. And the source material gets super visceral here. It spares no disturbing detail about this thing. The cover, yeah, it's not made of normal leather or cardboard. It actually looks like it's been stitched together from distinct separate patches of human flesh. I know, gross, right? And right dead center on the cover is this chaotic circular symbol. It looks like a massive knot of tangled tree roots. And if you look closely enough into those roots, there is a distinctly terrifying, sinister face hidden in the design. Honestly, just holding this thing would send shivers down anyone's spine. But human curiosity wins out, and Mia actually opens it. The very first page is written in this deeply unsettling dark red ink, and surrounding the weird text are these just horrific illustrations. We're talking upside-down trees, giant monsters with elongated teeth creeping out of thick fog, and worst of all, these bizarre eye-like symbols that literally give you the feeling the book is staring right back at you. It's like a giant puzzle of nightmares. And as her eyes trace over these strange symbols, she actually finds herself reading the weird ancient words out loud. It's like she has no control over her own voice. She literally cannot stop until the very last syllable leaves her mouth. And boom, the exact second she finishes that final word, the world just snaps. A violent supernatural reaction tears through the property. Instantly, Mia's right fingers feel like they're on fire. Just this intense, unbearable burning pain. She violently slams the book shut, but the damage is already done. The world outside the garage basically warps. The sky instantly turns pitch black. These violent, howling winds suddenly whip up, bending those massive pine trees almost to the ground, and the previously calm lake just starts churning with these aggressive dark waves. Out of nowhere, a massive, deafening flock of black crows swarms the entire farmhouse, and when Mia looks down at her burning hand in a panic, she doesn't see a normal burn. She sees a thin black line, looking exactly like the dark tree roots from the book's cover, aggressively spreading right under her skin. Section 3, The Terror of Evil Dead. Let's take a quick analytical breather here.
And this brilliantly illustrates how this concept of an ancient text unleashing a localized hell is such a massive recurring trope in modern horror media. Let's look at the breakdown. On side A, we have Mia's current nightmare from our main story. She shows up at her grandpa's isolated farmhouse, digs up a curse book, and accidentally wakes up a dormant ancient evil. Now, look over at side B. This is the plot of Sony Pictures' upcoming movie, Evil Dead Burn. In that story, a character named Alice goes to her late fiancé's family farmhouse, finds a seriously creepy Book of the Dead, reads it, and wakes up a demonic entity that turns the property into a literal living hell. The structural DNA of both these stories is identical. They both perfectly show how combining an isolated location with a cursed artifact is a guaranteed recipe for inescapable terror.
And hey, quick fun fact for you, if you actually want to experience that specific brand of intense, big-screen terror for yourself, Evil Dead Burn is hitting theaters on July 10th. But all right, let's plunge right back into Mia's waking nightmare in New Zealand. Section 4. Grandfather's Terrifying Return. So Mia is terrified. She hurriedly wraps that awful book back up in its black canvas, shoves it back behind the iron shelf, and sprints upstairs to her bedroom. Weirdly enough, after just a little while, the weather completely resets. I mean, the sky clears up, the lake goes totally flat, the crows are gone, everything seems fine, except for those creepy black roots still pulsing under her skin. Totally drained from the panic and the physical labor of the day, she just crashes and falls asleep. But it doesn't last. She's jolted awake by a sudden, desperate, blood-curdling scream for help, echoing through the quiet house. It's a man's voice, and it's coming from the drawing room downstairs. With her heart practically beating out of her chest, Mia creeps down the stairs, and when she gets to the dining room, she absolutely freezes.
Because sitting right there at the dining table, next to the demonic book, which, by the way, has somehow magically moved itself from the garage, is her grandfather, Richard, the guy who is supposedly dead. He looks awful. He's incredibly frail, caked in wet mud, and looks like he hasn't slept in a decade. Mia rushes over, manages to calm him down a bit, and he unloads this incredibly tragic backstory. It turns out, years ago, he was the one who originally found that book hidden behind the shelf. When he made the mistake of opening it, some malevolent entity immediately latched onto the house. It started small with whispers and voices, but then it escalated into projecting terrifying, twisted faces of his loved ones all over the house. It totally broke his mind. So Richard didn't die. He literally abandoned his own home and had been hiding out in these old, dilapidated cabins out by the lake this whole time. But earlier today, when he saw that freak violent storm in the swarm of crows, he knew exactly what it meant. He knew someone had opened the book again. So he risked everything and came out of hiding just to save his granddaughter.
Let's move to and see how this builds to our explosive final act. Section 5. The Painful End. So by coming back to warn her, Richard has just walked right back into the lion's den. Just as he finishes explaining everything to Mia, his eyes suddenly dart past her and lock onto the kitchen window. Slowly, Mia turns her head to see what he's looking at, and standing out there, just staring at them from the pitch-black tree line, is the figure of a young girl. But here's the detail that makes your blood run cold. The girl's entire face is severely, horribly burnt. The sight of this figure just completely paralyzes Mia. She can't even breathe. But things inside the house go from bad to an absolute nightmare in mere seconds. While he's staring at the window, Richard's face starts contorting violently. The veins in his neck bulge out and turn a sickly pitch black. His eyes roll entirely back into his skull until they are pure white. He's fully possessed. At that exact same second, the book on the dining table aggressively snaps open completely on its own. The pages start whipping back and forth like crazy, even though the air in the room is dead still. Those tangled root symbols from the cover literally start searing themselves into the wooden walls of the living room, burning right into the timber. And over in the fireplace, those freezing cold, dead ashes spontaneously explode into a roaring fire. The entity isn't just awake anymore, it's angry. The whole final confrontation is pure chaos, and it literally all happens in about 4 seconds. Mia desperately lunges forward to slam the book shut, but the second her hand makes contact, the black symbols scorch their way up her entire arm. Meanwhile, the possessed Richard silently reaches out and grabs this heavy metal candle stand, completely ignoring the boiling hot wax dripping all over his bare skin. He marches toward Mia, ready to kill. Just running on pure adrenaline and self-defense, Mia shoves him hard. Richard stumbles backward and crashes violently into the wooden wall. The burning candle stand flies out of his hand and lands directly in the heavy, dry window curtains. Within a fraction of a second, the fabric ignites, and the fire just races up the dry wooden walls of the farmhouse like a rocket. The house becomes an instant inferno. Mia is trapped, right? So she desperately tries to escape by diving through the kitchen window, the exact same window where they saw that terrifying girl just a minute ago. And guys, this is where the source material drops a completely mind-bending twist. As the raging fire finally catches up and engulfs her, Mia catches a glimpse of her own reflection in the window glass. The burnt girl, the one watching them from the dark forest, it was no one else but Mia herself. It was never a ghost, it was a premonition, a horrific, guaranteed promise of her painful fate that was sealed the absolute second she spoke those ancient words. The aftermath of all this is just grim. The local fire brigade eventually sees the smoke and rushes out there, but they are way, way too late. That old wooden structure burned so incredibly hot and fast. When the police finally comb through the wreckage, they find the charred remains of both Richard and Mia. The beautiful farmhouse is nothing but a massive pile of gray, smoldering ash. But right there, sitting on top of the ruined, blackened remnants of the dining table, the Book of the Dead. Completely intact, not a single page scorched, just sitting there totally untouched, waiting for the very next person to come along and open it. And that brings us to the end of our explainer today. We've seen exactly how just a little bit of curiosity can awaken ancient forces that we have zero chance of controlling, and how some objects carry a history much darker than their covers suggest. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought based on everything we just covered. Imagine you are walking through the ashen ruins of a burned-down house, and you spot a bizarre, flesh-bound book that somehow survived an inferno without a scratch. Honestly, would you actually dare to open it? Think about it. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I will catch you in the next explainer.